All right, good evening, folks, and great to have you on board in this Join the Police workshop. We're here to answer any questions that you might have, to discuss any policing conundrums to do with the police recruitment process. So it's great to have you all on board this evening. No agenda. Actually, I just keep needing to watch the participants' screen as watching for people to come in. I find it really hard to do two things at once. So someone's asking to join and I'm trying to talk. Oh, it just doesn't work for me, that. So it'd be great if we could get some cameras on. That'd be fantastic, so that you can see who you are, because I try and make these as interactive as possible. Let's just let Adele in the room. So my intention is to go around the room and just see, actually, because there's quite a few of you, I might just give you a shout out. If you'd like to just pass, just let me know, pass. If you've not got any burning issues, then there's no point in mentioning them, but this is the place now to get the sort of support and guidance you need for whatever stage of the recruitment process you're up to. And I'm also going to give you a bit of an update as well, because my ethical sources tell me that the stage 3 briefing may not be the stage 3 briefing, the new noisy party that people were experiencing before Christmas and around Christmas. You may experience what I'm going to call noisy party light, and that it's not a noisy party for the stage 3 of the online assessment centre that goes completely chaotic and out of control. I do believe they've toned it down now. It's not this huge public order scenario that I've often commented that as an inspector, I'd probably go down there myself. I'd certainly want a really competent sergeant down there leading. So the expectation that you can deal with something like that and talk about how you're going to deal with it in a briefing scenario is frankly bonkers. So I'll give you a bit of an update about that as well. Haley's saying, if I disappear, it's because my ticking time bomb baby went off. Oh, shh. Hey, no bad language from Brendan either as well. So Haley, just I feel for you. My kids are 10 and 13 now. They're still ticking time bombs that can go off at any time. Trying to get them to school this morning. Oh my goodness, what had gone on? Just they were both completely bonkers. Trying to get them out of the house, impossible. All right, okay. So let's push on, folks. We'll be here for about an hour and a half, something like that. So let's just do shout outs. What do you want to cover? Just stick your hand up and I'll invite you to come in. What is it you're puzzled about? What are you not sure about? Vetting, application forms, online assessment centre, whatever it is. Let's see what we can do to address your concerns, issues, problems, not sures. All right, over to Francis. Francis, what are we struggling with?
Hi, back again. I've just been given my assessment centre date, so I'm now obviously prepping for it again. My issue is obviously the stage 3 briefing keeps changing, and I've done mind maps for each question, so I know what I sort of need to add into it. But when we talk about it, are we just talking as we're flowing, or we're talking as like it's bullet points? I don't understand how I'm meant to gauge my answer to the computer.
How do you actually formulate an answer? And especially when the questions are so vague. Did you say you've done this before?
No, this is my first time. Yeah.
The questions will be really vague. Things like, what consideration would you... I'll go into it in a moment. All right, so let's... so weird questions. Stage 3 briefing, 3-minute answer, weird questions. All right, okay. Have you got a copy, Francis, of the sample exercise I put together?
Yeah, that's what we're making all my notes on at the moment.
All right, okay. Yeah, it's all changed.
Oh, great.
I know.
I've got this one. Hang on. This one.
That looks familiar. Does that talk about 3 different phases of the noisy party?
Yeah.
Then it goes insanely chaotic.
Yeah,
it's changed. Still a noisy party, but my ethical sources tell me it's changed. We'll come to that in a moment.
Okay.
All right. So Francis has got a. And when's your assessment centre start, Francis?
19th.
19th. Okay. All right. Thanks, Francis. And what else have we got? What are the conundrums? JP, how can we help you?
Ah, there we go. Right.
Yep.
Sorry, I haven't used Zoom in a while.
Okay, it's no problem.
Thanks for taking the time tonight to do this. I did my online assessment last year, November. It was quite a shock because I applied and then about a week later I got the online assessment and I had COVID at the time, so it was quite something.
You read your mind. Met Police?
Met Police, yes.
Yeah.
It was,
how did I know?
yeah. And then I tried to get hold of someone to say, you've given me no time here, and they said, no, you got to do it. So I got a 2, a 3, and a 4 on the competency-based interviews is where I failed. And I just needed some pointers on those because I thought they seemed to be all right, but obviously they didn't like my competency.
Okay, all right. And the Met Police and other forces will give you short shrift if you contact them and say, oh, I've not got enough time to prepare, because what they'll say is, well, you've got a whole week to do it in, so, and you don't need to prepare.
Yeah, the interesting thing was in the recruitment blurb, it says there are that there's some courses that they will provide, some information they will provide. So all I was doing was saying, but your blurb says that you will provide information around this, and that was it. So I had.
I'm laughing with you, not at you. Yeah.
I had an interesting week of reading your book and watching YouTube videos.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm laughing with you, not at you. The Metropolitan Police, you can work out the guidance and the conflicting messages. And there's something on the website at the moment about you needing 64 UCAS points to do the PCDA. But when you actually ask them, they say, oh, no, you don't. You just have English and maths. And actually, you don't need the maths. You can do that later on. So it's all just confusing and messy, and you're not missing much. They do provide some input, but it's a bunch of old. I say old. I'm old as well, but they're like retired chief officers who think that they're good at coaching people for things like this, and they might be. I don't know, but it's a bit of an old boys club, and they've managed to get a contract with the Met. The contract was never advertised or anything; it wasn't put out there for tender, and so they just sort of take you through the very basic things you could find on the internet anyway. Like, I know it's how would you answer an interview question? You'd use the STAR format. And it's just a rip-off from Google. So you didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. I've spoken to a few people who've been on that program, and it's not very detailed. But so it's okay. You know, anything's good. Anything's good. All right, awesome. Okay, so CBI. All right, I've got a cunning plan for that as well. All right, other issues, anything else? Thanks, JP. Other things, other conundrums, whatever question you've got, other people would like an answer to it and probably got the same question as well. Yeah, go on, Dan.
Hiya, Brendan. Do you remember when we were speaking on, I think it was a day earlier this week, and we were saying about how I was at obviously the cadets and presenting at the primary school?
Yeah.
Well, funnily enough, when I was reviewing the questions and some of the answers I'd got, well, two of the, I can't remember what questions they were, but two of them involved the same cadet experience and what I'd given on that day. So is it all right if we use these? It's obviously not the same scenario, but it's revolving around the same activity. Is that all right to use for both questions? Obviously, there won't be the same answers, but is it all right if we use the same sort of like scenario in the same day, in the same event, to use as conflicting answers?
Actually, that cropped up this afternoon. This afternoon, I ran one of the interview webinars. This is like a practice webinar for people who were on my interview course. And that exact same issue cropped up. And someone was really puzzled, thinking, well, if I use that answer for this question, when the other answer question crops up, I've not got anything for them.
Yeah.
And I've got a cunning plan. We worked it out. So I'll share that with you in this evening, Dan.
Thank you.
How to work through that. Over to Elise. Elise, how can we help you, good self? And how are you, Elise? How are you getting on with your isolation?
Yeah, should be out tomorrow if I'm negative, so all good. Just a question about the final interview that we covered the other day in the other workshop. When the first subject, you're talking about the situation and the impact.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the impact that it had on myself or the people that I'm in the situation with, or is it just a collection of everything?
I shall cover that this evening. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's a cunning plan for that as well. Great. And 81170008 5338. Come in. I'm sure that's not your name, but you got your little hand up. I can't see you, but you got your little hand up. 8117. Come in, please. No, you got your hand up. I'll invite you to. Hang on. No, you're actually unmuted, so we should be able to hear you, but we can't. Would you like to type in your conundrum, your question? I'll pick it up from the chat box. Anyone else, folks? Anyone else? Any other questions for our agenda this evening? All right. Okay. Let's put. Oh yeah. Come on. There's Hayley. How do you stop babies from crying at 3 in the morning?
Oh, let me unmute myself. How I've never done an application form for the police. How in depth do they go to obviously because they've got to fish out the people who they want to go through to the next stage? What kind of questions do they ask you?
All right. And which force are you looking at, Hayley?
Dorset.
Dorset. Okay. All right. So that's actually I'm going to start with that because that's an application form stage. What sort of questions did he ask? This isn't a shameless plug, Hayley. Do you have this?
I've started reading it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
How to succeed in the police recruitment process, even if you don't know where to start in your preparation. It's a bit of a. I've got to be honest. It's a foundation. It's a foundation. Let's just let Mike in. If I were to give you the sum total of all of my knowledge and understanding and how to apply it from all of my online courses and from the application form guidance I provide, the online assessment center, the interview, the sort of 20 hours of, if I gave you all of that, one, the book would be about that thick, and two, I wouldn't make a living anymore because I'd have just like given away everything for the price of £9.99. However, there's a lot of useful stuff in here. Well, I think it's useful anyway. What do you think, Hayley? Is it useful so far?
Yeah, so far it's really interesting. I'm actually doing it to my own town because there's quite a lot of crime in my area. So I started looking at all the geographical data and I found out it was the second most dangerous city in Cambridgeshire for all the crime.
Well, Cambridge is probably quite, it's probably okay in terms of the crime stats anyway.
Yeah.
Not as good as North Yorkshire. My goodness, just looked at the figures. Where I live in North Yorkshire is the safest county, safest place in the UK, apparently. And York is one of the safest places in North Yorkshire. Great. Anyway, that just, I was just sort of yapping away about nothing there to give me a bit of breathing space to find the actual pages. So the sort of questions you're going to get, the standard application form, there's actually a chapter on it here.
Okay.
So first question, professionalism. Please can you please describe a specific situation where you've intervened to take control of the situation, with sub-questions of things like why was it necessary to intervene? What did you do to take control of the situation? What did you do? What did you consider when intervening in the situation? What was particularly good or effective about how you intervened to take control of the situation? Now, a lot of forces are still using that application form. It's about a decade old, and you might be thinking, question 1, professionalism. That's not one of the competencies and the values that they say I'm going to be assessed against. Neither is question 2, working with others. Neither is question 3, decision making. Neither is question 4, service delivery. But a lot of forces haven't bothered to change the application form. They're still using an application form and questions, and therefore probably a marking guide from old money competencies. The competency and values framework was introduced, I think, in about 2016, 2015, something like that. So it's a good 5 years old. So if they're still using these old questions, and I think Dorset might do, actually, you can't point anything out to them. It's a bit like what I was saying to JP. You can't say, hang on a minute, but your blurb says. because the blurb will probably say something like, you're going to be assessed against a competency and values framework, and yet they're asking you questions from the old competency system. So one of the things you could do is to pre-plan your questions, so that you've got, pre-plan for the sort of questions you're going to get and come up with the answers beforehand.
Yes.
So that when it comes to a very short window, which you might have, like someone was saying to me the other day, they sent me a message to say, I want to apply for West Mercia Police. I'm on their alerts. So the force has got email alerts, so that when they start opening up for applications, you get an email that lands in your desktop, in your email queue. When they clicked on the link, it took them to something that said, we're very sorry, but we're now closed for applications.
Oh gosh.
So they missed the bus. So one of the things I'd advocate, folks, if you're in this situation, is to check the website every morning, every evening. Be obsessive about this. Check it every morning, every evening, because some forces open up for a very, very short window. And if you've got your application form ready, it's just a matter of cut, paste, because what some forces also do, Cheshire did this last year. One of the group members, Facebook group members, and by the way, if you're not one of the members of the Facebook group, actually all of you will be, but if you're watching this on the replay and you're not, please do search under groups for Bluelight and Police Recruitment, and you'll find the Bluelight Police Recruitment Facebook group. What's it like, folks? What's it like? Marks out of 10. Sorry, I'm going for a tangent here. Marks out of 10, the Facebook group, where 1 is rubbish and 10 is awesome. What is it? Go on, folks. I've got some 10s there. Yay, brilliant. Right, awesome. I like that. 10 out of 10. Brilliant. It's you that make it like that. It's not me. I just started the group off. I think we're about almost 18,000 people now, which is just incredible. Anyway, I go for a tangent. I forgot where I was. I do this, don't I? So yeah, getting the application form ready. Oh yeah, Adela, who's in the group, she applied for Cheshire on the Monday afternoon, and she was number 1,200 and something. The application form she got, they're all numbered, and she was like 1,200 and something. And she noticed at Tuesday lunchtime they closed. That was it. So it was open for about a day and a half. So some forces might only open for a sufficient time to send out a certain number of application forms. Other forces, they may open up and you can just download application forms to your heart's content, but they will close the window when they've got a certain number that arrived in the inbox, in their inbox. So a force like Dorset, I would say they would probably close applications when they've got about 300, 400 applications, because 300, 400 is fine. They'll be looking to recruit 24 out of that, have an intake of about 24, 30. So 400, 450, I think they'll probably close then, because they've got to mark them all, remember, and that takes people and time. So if they've got 2,000 application forms for 30 places, which they might have, if they just keep it open, they could get 2,000 application forms and for 30 places. They're not going to be able to mark them all in time. It'll hold up the whole recruitment process. So in case you're wondering why they do these things, that's the reason why. Because actually a physical human has got to mark them. And they screen a lot of people out through the application form. If you think about taking 2,000 people and turning it into 30, or 600 people and turning it into 30, whatever it is, whatever the ratio is. So it won't be 2,000, it'll be about 600, 500, 600, maybe 400, whatever it is. They'll close the window. The reason being is they've got to get rid of half of those application forms, because they can't send that many people to the online assessment centre because there's just not enough slots available nationally. And then once the online assessment centre results are in, they'll take the top scoring candidates and take them through to the interview. And that's just the way it works. So Hayley, long answer to a short question. Those are the sort of questions you're going to get. But then again, you could get, they might decide, let's do a GMP. So Greater Manchester Police, actually there's just 2 questions, Greater Manchester Police. One is, why do you want to be a police officer? 500 words. And the other one is, describe a time when you have supported or helped your community. 500 words, and that's it. That's all we want. We've got some other examples here. Lincolnshire Police, 750 words. How do you meet these following skills? Problem solving, communication, IT, ability to work as part of a team or with partners, the ability to build an effective working relationship, and if you're going for the detective role, experience in an investigatory role. Lancashire, do use the competency and values framework. In no more than 500 words, provide evidence of your ability to effectively engage with minority groups or communities within Lancashire, and give some examples. So you can see that it's all in the book, Hayley. And the challenge now, I suppose, for yourself is thinking about good examples, your best examples that are going to meet the needs of that question and get marked highly so you don't get screened out. Does that make sense, Hayley?
Yeah, thank you.
Does it seem a bit daunting?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. For that, how many of you applied to join the police? Hands up if you've applied. Keep your hands up if it was a daunting process. There you go, there's all the hands still up. So it's a daunting process. Some forces, like the Met, I think the Met, I stand corrected if anyone's in the Met and they say they've changed it, but the Met, I do believe they just want your information, like name, address, where do you live, stuff like that. They don't actually ask you anymore any SIFT questions. Dan's got something to say on that, or do they? Have they changed it, Dan?
No, well, I'm applying for West Mercia Police, and it's the same. It's the same as the Met. I had no questions whatsoever. It's all just about my personal information.
Oh, right. Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Dan. So it just goes to show there the variation. West Mercia Police tomorrow could decide to introduce the questions again. So could the Met, but the Met probably won't because they're interested in recruiting hundreds every month. And they use the online assessment centre to screen people out. Okay, so Hayley, the thing to do now is just to make sure that you've got some good answers ready. And what I'd advocate that you do is spend some time every day. I know it might be difficult looking after kids and everything, but see if you can find 30 minutes every day just to chip away at it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe put something on the Facebook group to ask other people, Dorset, do they actually ask questions on the application form? Because what you don't want is to prepare all of that and then, like West Mercia, just find that actually they're not asking anything. But it wouldn't harm you because you'd have a lot of stuff ready that's awesome for your interview. So yeah, it still help. And the thing for anyone who's in this position as well, who you might not be here now, or you might be just watching this on replay, is now is the time, if you're thinking about applying, now is the time to start developing your evidence. Because I get so many people on my workshops say things like, this afternoon, we had one of my interview candidates was saying, I can't think of a time when I've made a difficult decision. And that's pretty much a banker on your interview, on the final interview, getting asked a question about a difficult decision. So the time to start developing that skill, that value, the time to immerse yourself in a situation where you do have to make a difficult decision. And what she tried to say was, well, my difficult decision was deciding what university to do my master's at. That's a big decision. That's a big life decision. It's not a difficult one. It's not what they're looking for, really. So the time to immerse yourself in that kind of scenario is now. Not at the point where you're thinking, I can't think of anything. Because as soon as you answer any question at your final interview with, I can't think of anything, you've failed. That's it, you've failed. Anyway, I'm going off at loads of tangents, which I often do. GK, you've got a question or a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Brian, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity you are giving us to enlighten us more and more, giving us more insight. And I really appreciate that. My question is just, what is actually the difference between the online assessment and also physical interview? When they invite you for a physical interview or maybe online assessment interview, are there any differences between the two, or are they just one? Is it like the same thing happening in both of them, both physical and online? Is it the same thing happening there, or are there different things happening in there?
Okay, I'll come to that. I'll weave that into JP's answer about CBI as well, because that's a really good question. What sort of difference is there between them, and which force are you going for?
Basically, I want to go for Met.
You want to go for the Met, in which case the Metropolitan Police don't have a final interview.
Really?
However, it depends though. At this moment in time, what they put you through is 2 role plays. So when you do your day 2, to keep it simple in the Met, day 1 is, they call day 1 your assessment centre, your online assessment centre week. So that's like 7 days, but they call it your day 1. It's because the old assessment centre, they run what they call it the day 1. Day 2 is your fitness and medical, but they also put you through 2 role plays. So there's no interview, there's no final interview. Unless you go for the degree holder entry programme detective route for the Metropolitan Police, in which case they put, after the online assessment centre, there's a verbal reasoning test, and then you do the in-tray exercise, and then you do, which is written, and then you do a briefing exercise, which is verbal, face-to-face. And they used to do an interview which comprised about 5 or 6 questions, but they've stopped doing that. I wonder whether that's a temporary COVID thing, and whenever they can, they're going to reintroduce it. So it was a proper good 5-6 hours worth of assessment with the Met. So you're not going to have to worry about a final interview at the moment, unless they reintroduce it. You just need to worry about the online assessment centre. So I'll link that in with JP now, if I can. JP was asking about the online assessment centre. It's very formulaic. It's very formulaic, the online assessment centre. The stage 2, the competency-based interview, I don't even think it's an interview because there's no one else there. An interview is a conversation between 2 people. There's no one there. The green light, my camera's on when I can see the green light. The green light comes on. Someone will say to you, give you a question like, can you tell me about a time when you worked with others to solve a problem? Let's just have a think. Actually, I've got some questions scribbled down here. Tell me about a time when you made a decision under pressure, when you've had to resolve a problem using communication skills, when you've implemented something new from your past experience. Tell me a time when you've done the right thing and acted professionally, or challenged inappropriate behaviour. Time when you've delivered outstanding service or the best possible service. Questions like that, and you've got 5 minutes to fill the answer. And it's very tick box because they tell you which competency is and which value it is. So from that, I can work out, where is it? This is from my online course. I can work out sample questions. I can also work out the behaviours they're looking for. And those behaviours are just a lift from the competency and values framework. So as long as you mention those things, you are going to score highly. So for example, with the we take ownership, they're like points to prove. As long as you include these things in your answer, you're going to score well. You're ticking boxes. So things like, how did you identify the problem? How did you seek the views and feedback on the problem from others? How did you go about helping others involved in the problem solving process? How did you get other people to help or support you in the problem solving process? So things like that, they're just lifts. All I've done is I've translated that wheel of confusion in the competency and values framework into something that makes sense. So where's JP? Oh, I can't see him. JP? Oh, there he is. So, you know, these are some of the pointers, is just make sure that you approach things in that sort of highly formulaic way. And remember that the online assessment centre is just about ticking boxes. If you think about the assessors, they've been doing this now for 18 months. I've met a lot of them. A lot of them have never had a warrant card in their pocket. The College of Policing, for some unusual reason, doesn't like to use ex-police officers as assessors anymore. I don't know why. Actually, I think it might have something to do with unconscious bias. So they use people from outside of the police sector. They've never had a warrant card in the pocket, and they must be absolutely bored out of their brains, because for the past 18 months, they've been listening to people like yourselves just answering the same questions over and over again. So they might have 10 candidates to assess in one day, because it's only 30 minutes worth of interview, 5 questions, 25 minutes, a little bit of admin either side, 30 minutes worth. they can get through 10 a day easily. And they'll do them in their own time at home. You might be just a distraction to their glass of Merlot and cheese and biscuits at 10 o'clock at night once the kids are in bed. So all they're listening for, and they won't rewind it if they can't understand you or can't hear you. They're not going to rewind it just to check it again, because that's taking up their valuable time. They're just going to listen for certain key things. Tick, 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 tick. Not interested in your motivation, not interested in your values, ticking boxes. JP, does that sound about right?
Yes, yeah, I think it was. I mean, I had pre-thought out the questions from your book and from some of the stuff that I saw on YouTube. I had an idea of what the questions would be, and I actually wrote out scenarios. I thought about them and wrote them out, and I obviously missed key points within or keywords that they're looking out for.
They're not looking for keywords. Some of the books out there talk about using, there's even a book out there that talks about these are the keywords and phrases to use in your interviews. That doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Because if you think you can just slot in some buzzwords from the competency and values framework, it won't work. It won't work. The way to get 100% in your competency-based interview, and a lot of my clients have got 100%, is to describe how you did those things. And in my workshops, this is what we focus on. We focus on this, we focus on this, we focus on this. We spend 2 hours just drilling people through. And the thing that crops up all the time, there's certain things that crop up all the time. There's mistakes. One, a complete and utter lack of structure. Two, a lack of attention to detail in terms of describing how you did something, not just what you did. Three, using the word we too much. Because if you use the word we, the assessor doesn't know whether you did it or someone else did it. So they can't mark you. So you get 0 points. It's just little things like that. There's loads of little things like that to bear in mind. So it's so formulaic. My 13-year-old daughter could pass the online assessment centre interview and she'd get 90+%. Because I'd just coach her in what she needs to say and how she needs to say it. And some of you might be thinking, that can't be right. No, it can't be. It's just insane. It's insane that some forces will accept you into the police as a constable, where all you've done is the online assessment centre and nothing else. No final interview, nothing else, just that. So the first day you actually speak to a real person might be the first day in the police, which frankly is just bonkers. Because no one's had the opportunity to check out your values and motivation. And forces are now wondering why so many people are leaving in the first 12 months. Someone's just posted it today on Twitter to say that they're absolutely aghast that someone in their initial training, they're already in the police, was making representations during the training course to say, no one told me I had to work outside of an 8 to 4 working day. And what do you mean I've got to work weekends? Honestly. So I'm going off at a tangent, but it's my soapbox this. I just can't believe that the police are recruiting people based on this online assessment centre and nothing else. It's just insane. But anyway, bottom line, JP, just tick the boxes. Tick the boxes. Shameless plug. Come and join us on one of the courses and practice with me. And when you practice with me, it all kind of works out. All kind of works out. I don't know, who's been on one of my courses? The online assessment centre, the course with me. Am I speaking to the truth? Well, please give me some feedback. Where 1 is Brendan's not speaking to the truth. This is just rubbish. And 10 is no, Brendan's really speaking to the truth. There we go. It's just a 10 straight away. Boom. It's what I do. Caroline's giving a thumbs up. Yeah, it's what I do. It's what I do. So shameless plug, but it'll get you through. It'll get you through. And if it doesn't get you through, and you've shown me you've done all the work, I'll give you your money back.
I'll see you on the 20th.
Yeah. That's how it works. Honestly, that's how it works. Yeah. That's how it works. I've been doing this now for over a quarter of a century. I've been coaching and supporting people for police type interviews for 26 years now. So I know how it works. I know it works. So structure, detail, that's why you'll have failed. And you probably said things like, I don't know, JP, but you might have said something like, I approached the person calmly and professionally, or I listened to them empathetically. Or let me just quote you this the other day from a, this was from this, we have some awesome learning from these online assessment centre courses, but where is it? Here it is. My notes, honestly, these notes are just, oh, here it is. I took an individualised and holistic approach to maximise the impact of what I was doing. I conducted a risk and assessment plan, and I was bold and assertive in what I did. I took control and ownership, working through the problems effectively and efficiently with my fellow teammates. What do you reckon, folks? Buzzwords? Buzzword City? Buzzword City, or no, that sounded all right. It sounds fine, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound great? I mean, who wouldn't want to work with someone who takes an individualized and holistic approach to maximize the impact of something, whatever it was? It means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And I actually wrote next to it, actually I can't show you because it might highlight the individual, but I actually wrote next to it buzzwords, big letters, and just circled it. So that might have been the problem, JP. That might have been the problem. Sounds great, means nothing. And by the way, if you try and do that on your final interview, so actually there was a good question. You did ask a good question there, GK, about the difference between a final interview and the online assessment centre interview. At the final interview, you're in front of someone like me. And, you know, when I say someone like me, I used to do the interviews, and I was an inspector in the police, and I was on the front line. Who's in the police sector at the moment? Anyone in the police sector at the moment? Francis, if you don't mind me asking, what is it you do?
So I work in custody and I'm a special.
Custody and a special. Yeah. So let me read your mind. Can you think of an awesome inspector, an inspector you've got a lot of time for?
Yep.
Yeah. That awesome inspector, have they got any time at all for anyone trying to BS them with fancy words and buzzwords?
No.
No. If you tried to, if you actually said something to them like, "Boss, I'm thinking about taking a holistic and individualized approach to maximize the impact of," what do you think? What do you think the reaction would be?
They'd be like, "What? What are you talking about?"
what are you actually really talking about at the moment? Yeah. So thanks, and worse in custody as well. My guess is the custody sergeants, they just haven't got any time or energy for anyone trying to BS them. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that they're simple folk. It's just that they're what they're looking for. Thanks, Francis. Thank you. Okay. Is they're looking for people who, at the final interview, they're looking for people who can persuade them that you're the sort of person that they can work with, that at 4 o'clock in the morning when it's all going pear-shaped, you're the sort of person that they can work with. You're going to answer the questions in a detailed and structured way, but with authenticity and some kind of emotional connection, and talk about how you felt when you were dealing with something and how you managed those emotions. Talk about how difficult something was. Talk about the mistakes you made and how you managed those mistakes. Don't try and pretend to them that everything you touch turns to gold. Don't try and entertain them with buzzwords. Because I'll probably save it, if you're trying to do buzzwords on me, I'll probably save it to the end of the answer, and I'll just say that, thank you for your answer. An individualized and holistic approach. What exactly do you mean by that? And I'll slowly pull you apart. And what I'm basically doing is I'm saying, don't you even dare try and do all this buzzword nonsense on me. Or I might even stop you halfway through the interview and just say, I'm really sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about. Francis, are inspectors and sergeants likely to say things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. They might, thanks, they might sort of couch it a bit more gently for you. They might just say, so I'm just going to stop you for a moment. I'm struggling a little bit to understand some of the phrases you're using, like an individualized and holistic approach. Could you just describe how you actually did things to me? Because I'm struggling to follow you at the moment. That sounds a bit better, doesn't it? That sounds a bit sort of less sort of in your face, less sort of, I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about. But you might equally get an inspector who just goes, I'm really sorry. Don't even apologise, actually. They'll just stop you and just say, I don't know what you're talking about. Could you perhaps simplify things a little bit and describe how you did something? One of my clients a couple of months ago said he wanted to complain and appeal against a decision. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, the inspector who interviewed me was really blunt and to the point. I said, well, and? What are your grounds for appeal? Well, he wasn't very nice to me. I thought, well, they're not there to be nice to you. I mean, they will generally be nice to you, but you might get one on having a grumpy off day. You don't know what they were dealing with until 4 o'clock in the morning that day. You know, you just don't know, do you? So, but most of the time they'll be really nice people. What they tend to do is they tend to put their more pleasant inspectors and sergeants in front of new recruits. Because there are some grumpy ones, aren't there? Aren't there, Francis? Some grumpy sergeants and inspectors. Yes, you're nodding away. They might be awesome at their job. You know, I've had sergeants. I wouldn't put them anywhere near a new recruit. But if I wanted a warrant executed at 4 o'clock in the morning, I needed a team put together to handle someone who is likely to be extremely violent, then that's my sergeant. That's my sergeant. That's the one I want. You know, but I wouldn't stick me in front of a new recruit. Equally, there's other sergeants I can think of that would probably get into a right flap if I said to them, right, I need you to put together an entry team, get the search warrant, and this person is likely to be violent, and we need to do the entry within an hour. Get it done. They're going to a right old flap, but I could put them in front of a new recruit to do an interview because they'd be awesome at that because they're really good people. The police, like any other organisation, is made up of so many awesome people. They all have different character traits. Anyway, am I going off at a tangent? Because someone said, GK asked, what is the difference between the final interview? The other big difference is the type of questions that you get asked. So in your final interview, you could get asked questions about why you want to join the police. Durham Constabulary at the moment don't even say, so why do you want to be a police officer? They just say, what makes you think you'd be a good fit as a constable in this force? Boom, I'll give you that. There's another force out there who just goes, so why you and why now? It's the same question, it's just the way it's being delivered. Another question that we practiced this afternoon, actually I'm going to do a YouTube video on it because the person who answered it, I'm not going to embarrass them by mentioning their name, gave an awesome answer. Oh my goodness. And it was, the question was, what is the biggest challenge that this force is facing? And she gave an awesome answer to that. And then straight away she rolled into, and this is how I would help the force meet that challenge. And then she gave an awesome answer to that as well. We put some icing on the cake to it. There's some things she's gone away to do to put the icing on the cake on it to make it an outstanding answer. But she predicted what the next question would be. So tell me about what's the biggest challenge we're facing. Once you give that, the next question is, how will you be able to help supporters in meeting that challenge? So tough questions like that. Other questions like, what values are important to this force? And then it'd be, okay, great. Tell me about a time when you've demonstrated one of those values. Or tell me what value is most important to you. Tell me about a time when you've demonstrated that value. How in the future, these are Cheshire questions, how in the future will you do effective community engagement and problem solving? Followed by, how in the future as a constable will you help manage change in our communities? Durham Constabulary. There's a current problem with someone who's homeless in the city centre. Is causing a massive amount of demand. We get repeat calls about him every day, about his public order offences, his antisocial behaviour. How would you go about dealing with that? So I'm seeing an increasing number of situational questions, forward-facing questions, values-based questions. Durham does not ask one question which starts with, can you tell me about a time when you have work with others to solve a problem, overcome an obstacle, challenge inappropriate behaviour, help manage change, made a difficult decision, work with others to solve a problem. I think I mentioned that, didn't I? Standard sort of CVF type questions. I think they're starting to get wise to the fact that they could be played a little bit. So they're starting to ask questions that really, really test you. Durham doesn't ask one of those questions now. Other questions that are starting to emerge a lot, questions around what impact is being a police officer going to have in your personal life? How will you manage the strain on your mental health as a police officer? What do you believe your role will be in a year's time? What do you believe your role is, full stop, as a police officer? So, you know, some really, really tough, challenging questions there. And got to be ready. I'm looking at some of your faces now. You look like sort of frightened rabbits, some of you. You can prepare for these things. Shameless plug, weekly workshop. We prepared for them this afternoon. It was awesome. It was a small group of us, about 6 of us, all part of the interview course. And they were nailing it, honestly, they were nailing it. And the individual who couldn't think of a time when they'd made a difficult decision, a little bit of probing, a little bit of work, and we actually came up with an awesome answer from their past. They didn't realise that the thing they'd done was actually brilliant evidence of difficult decision. All right, so let's just see where we are. We've ticked off JP. Dan, I'm going to come to you as well. So we did this today as well. Same experience, same activity, 2 different answers. So one today, actually, I won't say what the situation was, the scenario was, but it's the same activity, the same experience, the same day. Part of the thing that they had to do was about analysing information in order to make a difficult decision. The next part of it was about working with others to implement that decision. So what they could do and what they will do is, if they're asked a question about analysing information in order to make a decision, they will roll out the first part of that activity, that thing. And then if they're asked a question about working with others, they'll say, so in the same role, a situation occurred where. You don't have to use the phrase, the same situation, in the same situation, because it's not a lie if you're just saying a situation occurred where. There was a similar problem with X, Y, and Z. And the only way I could achieve my aim was to work with others. And then you just go into the working with others part of it. Does that make sense, Dan?
Yes, it does. I was just thinking, because obviously it's the public service, so you're delivering a service, and then the other one is we take ownership. So I presume actually, because they're quite contrasting, obviously, competencies. So I think that it could work.
Yeah, it would. It would. So in terms of we take ownership, what they want to hear about there is how you work with other people. They don't want to hear that you've solved the problem on your own.
Yeah.
By the way, if anyone thinks that an ace answer would be how you demonstrated how you really solved the problem on your own and you didn't need other people, no, not a good answer. All your answers, if you can, should be including as many different people as possible. Because for those of you who are in the police sector already, you know this to be true, that from the moment you put your uniform on in the locker room to the moment you take your uniform off, everything you do involves working with other people. Everything. There's nothing you do as part of your role that doesn't involve other people. Nothing. Ever. Full stop. I think the only thing that I've ever done that's just been me is sticking the kettle on and making a brew. That's been about it. And by the way, just because you get to the rank of inspector one day, don't forget to make your officers a brew. When they're all pulled out, don't be expecting a student officer to stick the kettle on. As a sergeant or an inspector, make them a brew and just say, it's time for an inspector brew, and put the kettle on, and get the kettle on for him. But when you are a student officer also, I don't care what anyone says, stick the kettle on. Whether you drink tea or coffee or not, put the kettle on, put the brews on whenever you can. Because there's going to be times as a student officer where you're sort of twiddling your thumbs a little bit thinking, everyone's talking about things that I don't know what they're talking about. It's all right, it'll all come together one day. But when that happens, say, tell you what I'll do. Shall I stick the kettle on? I'm going to be everyone's hero. And the other thing, don't forget, if that's in the parade room, go and knock on the sergeant's office. Ask the sergeants if they want the brew. And don't forget the inspector. Go and knock on the inspector's door as well and ask them if they want the brew. Because it can be a lonely place being an inspector. And if you're on the same corridor as a superintendent, one of my clients did this. I advised them to do it, and they did it. They knocked on the door and said, "Good morning, superintendent. My name's such and such a person. I'm one of the new student officers. I'm just putting the kettle on. Would you like a cup of tea?" And apparently the superintendent went, "Wow, no one has ever said that to me before. Awesome. Come in. Before you put the kettle on, come in. How's it going? Where are you from? Blah, 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 blah." Got to know him. And they said it was great. Had a great chat with the superintendent. And actually asked the superintendent, so, sort of bold question. I'm not quite sure what a superintendent does. What is it you do, sir? And apparently the superintendent went, "Whew, now, now then, how long have you got?" And it was a really interesting conversation, apparently. In the meantime, the sergeant and inspector were saying, "Where's so-and-so? Didn't they say they were putting the kettle on?" Sorry, I go off at a tangent, but it's just the job you're going into is just awesome. Never forget the people around you who are part of your team, no matter what rank or position they're in. Stick the kettle on for them. Turn up early, put the kettle on, put some toast on first thing in the morning. Anyway, go off at a big tangent again. Jess, you got your little hand up there. Did you have a question that I've not recorded yet?
Yeah, I was just wondering what advice you'd have for the written stage of the online assessment centre.
Right. Okay, I'll look at that as well, because I'm going to look at stage 3 in a moment. I can link them to. I can link those two together. Awesome. Have you got that coming up then, Jess?
Yes, mine starts on the. What date am I on now? On the 27th, mine starts all the way up until the 3rd.
Plenty
So
of time.
a week to complete.
Plenty of time. There's no one here. I don't think anyone. Oh, actually, there is someone here who did the written exercise, written thing with me last night. The written webinar. Adele, I hope you don't mind, Adele. Are you there, Adele? Are you there at the moment?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Adele, how long was it? It was just under 3 hours worth last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a long one, but it didn't feel that long.
It was 3 hours though, wasn't it? We spent 3 hours
Yeah.
going through the written exercise. What I'm going to involve yourself, Adele, if I can. What advice would you give? I know you've not sat it yet, but you're about to do it very soon. But based on what we covered last night, what would your advice be to Jess about the written exercise?
I don't know, if I'm honest, because that's the one I'm struggling with.
Right.
So
Okay. Well, I can help you as well.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I'm struggling with. I've got all my notes that I've read through again from last night. But I think I'm just mind boggled tonight because I've done my first 2 stages. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God, you said you did your first 2 phases today. How was it?
Yeah, it was all right actually. I sort of think, why did I get so worked up and worried about it? Because it was smooth with your help. It was exactly what you said.
Brilliant. Formulate, tick the boxes, you'll be through to the next step. Okay, right. Well, let's help unravel your head, Adele, and just let's help your good self as well. So for the written, it's probably going to be a scenario, and this is the thing about the guidance from the College of Policing. Take a lot of it with a pinch of salt, because they start off by telling you you've got 40 minutes to complete the written exercise in. Those who've done the written exercise, anyone done the written exercise? Yeah, JP and Elise. Is that correct, Elise? 40 minutes? No. How many hours have you got? 2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours to do it in. So that's the first bit of nonsensical advice. The Met Police also keep telling you as well to say that you've got 40 minutes to do this in. Oh, just seeing a comment there from Jennifer. My partner's 18 months into his DHEP and many of his cohort have already dropped out. Yeah, because no one's told them yet to work at weekends. So sorry, I go off at a tangent. Elise, go on, Elise.
Yeah, I've already done my online assessment centre, and I didn't know that it was 2 hours until you've recently said it. So when I did it, I was like under the impression it was 45 minutes rushing through, and then when it came to the saving stage of that part, it wouldn't save. So I had to like really quickly like retype everything out and then submit it, and then realize, oh, actually I've got 2 hours. I didn't have to rush it all.
Oh my goodness. Right. Oh, there's so many things about it that they don't tell you. So first of all, it's 2 hours. Secondly, it depends on your browser whether you can cut and paste from a Word document into the actual boxes that they give you, because you're typing it all out. Some browsers, I believe, will let you do it. Some browsers won't. One of my clients just yesterday typed it all out onto a Word document and then just cut and paste it in. There's no camera on you for the written. So that's another bit of guidance I give you. There's no camera on you. The College Policing Guidance says that you can't use notes that you pre-prepared before. So that's the guidance, but there's no camera on you. So I'll just park that there for you. And there'll never be a camera on you. I don't care what forces say about they may do a spot check. No, they won't. You think there is some team of ninja assessors from the College of Policing who are on standby 24/7 to dip sample your video feed to see whether you're dressed up as a mutant ninja turtle, or whether you're doing it in your pajamas, or you're naked, or whether you've got anything in front of you. But the guidance says that you can't use pre-prepared material. But you may be able to type everything out on a Word document and cut and paste it in. So what Adele's done 2 stages today. So, and she went through a 3-hour webinar with me last night where we went through an exercise that's probably very similar to, or almost identical to the one you're going to get. And it's about antisocial behaviour. It's about criminal damage, vandalism, vulnerable people, vulnerable victim, young people who are likely to be vulnerable, a community that's a bit annoyed about what's going on. And the thing I advocate is that you take a structured problem-solving approach. So Adele's probably a bit bamboozled because I introduced everyone to the sort of 8-stage problem-solving approach, intensive engagement approach, which looks at things like how do you form a working group? How do you identify people in the community who are going to be part of your working group? Once you've got that working group put together, what do you do with them? How do you inspire them? How do you motivate them? What sort of questions do you ask of them? How do you enable, what's your aim? Is it to carry out enforcement, or is it to enable the young people to become the best versions of themselves they can be, or to enable the community also to become the best version of itself it can be? How do you go about carrying out the initial investigation into any crimes that may have been conducted? So you've got the 5 building blocks of any criminal investigation. The reason why Adele's probably feeling a bit bamboozled is because what I've thrown at her is, and everyone else, and we've worked through it, is all of these different structured approaches to solve problems, develop and enable a cohesive community, investigate a crime, safeguard an individual, use things like threat, harm, risk, a whole load of stuff that you can utilize to answer the questions that they're going to ask you. Because they're not going to give you this scenario and just say, how are you going to deal with this? They're going to ask you to do things like define the problem, talk about the causes of the problems. So what we look at is things like the causes of the causes, adverse childhood experiences, things like that. We look at preventative measures. Basically, everything's a structured approach. So even if they change the scenario tomorrow, so Adele, you know, if they change the scenario tomorrow and it wasn't what we were expecting, which I've sourced from, you know, ethical sources, it doesn't matter. You've still got a structured approach to dealing with whatever they put in front of you. It's like a template. And this is no different from being a police officer. I worked out as a sergeant and an inspector that actually, as long as you've got a system for everything, it doesn't really matter what gets thrown at you. As long as you've got a systematic approach to dealing with any incident in front of you, it doesn't matter whether, I mean, the most horrendous one I came across was a couple of my team came across someone hiding behind a car at sort of 4 in the morning. And they went to speak to him and he's got blood all over him. So he says, I'm just going to sit at a petrol station to get some cigarettes. and they take the bold decision of arresting him for something that involves an assault, but they don't know who the victim is. It turns out him and his mate got chatting to some guy in a pub the night before, and they got pally, and this guy came back to their apartment, and the guy that came back to the apartment thought they were up for a good time. They weren't up for the sort of good time he thought they were up to, so we came on to them, and they didn't like that, so they battered him to death with a baseball bat. And then they decided we need to dispose of the body parts, so they got a saw and started cutting them into bits. And then they decided they needed to get some cigarettes, so one of them went to get some cigarettes. Anyway, so it came in, that's what we're dealing with. The poor officers having to deal with that. Oh my goodness, their heads were a bit cabbage because there's like body parts in a bath. It's like something from a movie. But it doesn't matter. At that point there, I've been like an inspector for 10 years, so it didn't matter. There's just an investigation that needs to be conducted. There's evidence that we need to secure. So the building blocks are really clear. Preserve life, well, we've missed that opportunity here, but we need to make sure there's no other lives that might be, we don't know if there's someone around the back of the house who's half dead or half alive because they didn't tell us about the other person. There's other things to do, preserve life. And then we're going to secure the scene. And then we're going to preserve evidence in respect to the scene. And then we're going to seek victims and witnesses. And then we're going to identify the suspects, or if they're already identified, we've done everything. We've got a case we can put together. We've got everything we need. We don't have to rush in that set of circumstances. All the clothing gets seized because each one of the individuals who are our suspects, they're scenes as well. So we seize all the clothing, we do hand swabs. It doesn't matter what it is. You've just got to have a systematic approach to dealing with it. So you've also got things like the national decision model, which comes into play for the stage 3 briefing. But in terms of problem solving, something that's more long term, then you've got that 8-stage process that we go through, which involves gathering information and intelligence, forming a working group, doing some cause analysis, impact analysis, going out into the community to further grow your working group, discover the assets in the community, use more appreciative questions. Then there's vision setting, creating a vision for the future in terms of the community and young people. And then the next steps are things like TPAC. TPAC is another model. So I'm throwing loads of stuff at you here, but in what we do things to develop trust. We've got enforcement actions that we need to take. We take preventative actions to make sure the thing we're enforcing doesn't happen again. We're advocates for the community, so we're going to help build a strong community so that crime doesn't flourish. And we're going to communicate everything that we do, and we're going to get the community to do it. So that's why Adele's head's a bit pickled, because does that all sound familiar, Adele? Does it all sound like ringing a bell from last night? Adele's nodding away there. You may be thinking, how does he remember all of this stuff? Well, remember, I was doing this stuff for years. I was doing this stuff for years, and I've still been doing that stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, where's Jess? Is Jess gone? she's gone. Sorry, Jess, if you're watching this on the replay. I didn't mean to say. Oh no, there's Jess. There she is. She's not gone. There she is. Where is she? She's moved. You were in the top corner before, and you moved. Oh no, you're back in the top corner again. So
I just jumped around and put my hand down.
Yeah, Jess. So Jess, so there you go. You asked for it. That's the guidance. There's a lot there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I bet you're thinking. I bet you're wishing. I wish I didn't ask that question. But actually, everything you're probably working out there. Everything about the online assessment centre is just a structured approach. That's all it is. Structured approach. That's how you get. That's how my clients get like 100% in the CBI and 90+% in the stage 3. Structured approach. So that's that. Got that. Same, done that. Same experience. Done that. Done that. Oh, Elise, where's Elise? There she is. She's still there. Right. So the model I advocate for, Elise asked a question about in the final interview, when you're talking about the situation and talking about the impact, who would you talk about the impact being on? So in the model I advocate for, which is very similar to the STAR model, if you look up how to answer an interview question, it'll generally say use the STAR model. But I think it's a bit restrictive, and no one talks like that. How many of you say things like, because the STAR model stands for situation, task, actions, result. And I think the reason why it's popular is because it's a word. But how many of you on a daily basis say things like, the task I'm setting myself? No, I didn't think so. How many of you say things like, so what I was aiming to achieve, or what I'm aiming to achieve here? If you're like briefing a manager on what you're going to do next, how many of you would say things like, so what I'm aiming to achieve here, or what I'm hoping to achieve? Yeah, quite a few of you there, a few nods. Yeah, so it sounds a little bit more like the sort of language we'd use. And the other thing about the task thing is people fall into the trap of describing a task they were set. So the task I was set by my manager, and as an interviewer, I tend to just switch off there. I might even stop people and say, actually, I'm more interested in something where you've given 120% without being asked to do so, as opposed to telling me about something that you've been asked to do. Because what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for people who don't just wait for being told what to do. I want people who are awesome starters. You know, they'll pick up something and they'll get on with it, and they'll identify something and think, yeah, this needs dealing with. I'm going to deal with it. They don't wait to be told. So anyway, I digress. Situation in there, I like people to talk about the impact, and then we talk about the aim, what I aim to achieve, and then you can talk about the options you considered to achieve that aim. Then you can talk about the actions, what you did and how you did it. Then we can talk about the result. This is what I learned from it, and what you learned from it isn't the importance of open questions. You know, what would you do differently next time? What's the real learning? And then you can really put the icing on the cake by talking about knowledge and understanding, but that's another thing, another 10 minutes of me talking entirely. So back to Elise's question, in that situation part, we talk about, so in my role as such and such a thing, a specific situation occurred where, and you need to make sure they understand that sector that you're in as well, because bear in mind that cops don't understand how Tesco's works, or they don't understand how B&Q works, or they don't understand how the bank works that you work at, or they don't understand how the voluntary organisation that you work with works, or the Royal Air Force, or whatever it is. So you need to describe a little bit about this is what that role involves and this is what the organisation does. And once, there's just actually a couple of months ago, I had to stop someone halfway through their answer and just say, this sounds really, really good, but I've no idea what you do. Just, I've no idea. And it was on a webinar like this, and I looked carefully and I thought, is she in army fatigues? And she said, I'm in the army. Can't you tell? I said, well, yeah, but even so, what? Infantry, engineering, medical corps? I don't know. So she explained, and it all started making sense. So we described the situation. We describe a specific problem and time. So I seem to remember we had this with yourself, Dan, didn't we? When Dan's not away though. So you gave a sort of general, this is what I do. They don't want to know about that, do they, Dan? They want to know about a specific slice in time. Yeah, so specific slice in time, describe the problem, and then there's a sort of emotional awareness that you'd be able to demonstrate, even if you're not being assessed against that sort of value or competency. The assessors, the sergeants and the inspectors understand this competency and values framework just as much as you do. So what they're listening for is things like, at least talking about the impact. So if this problem wasn't addressed, the impact on the person concerned could be. The impact on me could be. The impact on the team could be. Or you could also talk about the impact on the organisation in terms of its reputation. So a great example of that is any answers about tackling inappropriate behaviour, because that's a popular question at the final interview. Can you tell me about a time when you challenged someone's inappropriate behaviour? And so if you talk about this problem that you're faced with, you know, do you or don't you tackle this inappropriate behaviour? And the answer is always that you did. Because if you say I referred it to my manager, well, you didn't tackle it, you didn't deal with it, you didn't challenge it. So a classic example would be, if this wasn't dealt with, then the person who is subject of the inappropriate behaviour would believe that everyone else in the team thinks it's acceptable to bully them. And this could ultimately lead to them leaving the organisation, and then could ultimately lead to them taking the organisation to industrial tribunal, which could affect the reputation of the organisation. Because how many of you want to work for an organisation that's racist? It's what the problem Cleveland police have had. Anyone applying for Cleveland? No, not many people apply to Cleveland. It's because it seems to be in the press every week for all the wrong reasons. It was several years ago, the first Pakistani firearms officer in Cleveland was met with a sergeant who had a British National Party sticker on his holster. And where the inspector said openly to the team, just watch this, folks, just watch how long it takes me to get rid of this P word. And it just continued. The horrific racism directed towards him just continued. And eventually he had to leave the department. Cleveland police said they were going to sort it all out, and they didn't. No one was disciplined. No one was brought to justice for these terrible, terrible things that they'd said and done. And so eventually he left, and he got a payout, I think, of about $500,000, which is nothing compared to loss of earnings and loss of pension, and it really wasn't good enough. So I suppose the question, when you think about the impact on an organisation, is if this was a problem. Because let me ask you this question. I'm sure Cleveland's better now because we've had some much better leadership that have come in to try and sort out that force. But back then, if you're Pakistani or minority or black, would you want to join Cleveland Police? Anyone? No? Actually, if you're from any background, would you want to join Cleveland Police? I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to be part of it. Sorry, Cleveland, but I just wouldn't. And you need to get your act together because you're still in the press for all the wrong reasons. You know, it's a force that just, it's my personal opinion. I'll counter this with it's just a personal opinion, but there seems to be some toxicity that exists in it that just isn't going away. And they've had about 5 or 6 chief constables in the space of 2 years. There's just something not going right there. Anyway, so Elise, that'd be what you're talking. You wouldn't say that, but you know, if it was a racism that wasn't being challenged, then that's the impact on the reputation of the organisation. And then you can also talk about the impact on the perpetrator of the language. So in that Cleveland case, the impact on the inspector and sergeant, no one challenges them, no one calls them to task, no one reports their behaviour, which means they think it's acceptable. They think it's acceptable. And then they push the boundaries a little bit further, and they push the boundaries a little bit further. People who do small wrong things often get to the point where they do big wrong things. Cousins, I don't want to mention his name, but there's an example of people who didn't call out his behaviour, and if they had done, who knows what might have been avoided. So, and then you've got the impact on the rest of the team. Because if this wasn't challenged, then the rest of the team would see that this behaviour is not being challenged, and they may become that standard. They may become that standard. So, Elisa, that's probably a very extreme example, but can you see how that sort of impact thing works? If you deliver something like that, you know, you've got your interviewer just sat there just thinking, it's great, this, wow. It's like sergeant level stuff, this. Like sergeant level stuff. So there's a bit of a free gift to you all there to sort of think about that impact, and it shows that level of emotional awareness and that sort of foresight as to if these things aren't dealt with. And you can talk about it from all sorts of different problems, different angles, but it demonstrates that you can see things through the lens of other people, which is a really, really powerful value to have as a police officer, being able to see the world through the lens of another person, to be able to walk in their shoes, to be able to demonstrate that empathy that's required to really get a feel for what it might be like to be in their life. You can never truly understand it because you never. It's an Atticus Finch thing from Killing a Mockingbird. Atticus Finch in that story said that you can only truly understand someone when you've lived in their skin. Which was that book was authored before Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone seen Silence of the Lambs? Some of you might not be old enough, but yeah, it's a bit freaky, isn't it, to be talking about being in someone else's skin when you've watched Silence of the Lambs. It's like, oh God. I'm sure the author didn't mean that back in the day. Elise, does that help answer that question? Yeah. All right. Brendan, you can't answer questions in a minute. I don't think I can do that. It's just not part of my thing, is it? It's just not part of my thing. So I think we've done everyone, haven't we? Elise, Hayley, we've done your thing. Dan, we've got yours. JP, we've done yours. Francis, have we done your thing, Francis, about the, did we? Oh no, stage 3 brief. Oh no, we didn't, did we? Did we? No, Francis didn't do it, did I? No, I didn't do it. So, the 3 minute, they call it a briefing. It's not really a briefing. At the moment, it's a noisy party that they're going to ask you to deal with. Before Christmas, it was a noisy party that became carnage, as in there's serious public disorder out in the streets. Just became this carnage that I probably would have had a sergeant dealing with. I know operational officers have been giving the College of Policing feedback to say that this is not a potential recruit scenario. This is like what a sergeant would deal with or an inspector. So it feels like they've toned it down. So the questions they ask you as well are going to be very vague, like what considerations would you be giving to this scenario now? And they ask you the questions one at a time, so you don't know what the questions are in advance. So you might find yourself repeating yourself a little bit, but what I'd say that I would develop my answers around you communicating with others and negotiating and thinking about safeguarding and thinking more about, and we've been doing this now for 18 months since the online assessment centre kicked into place, but my clients who score 90-something% are the ones that consistently, they're the ones who take an approach which is less about enforcement and is more about enabling and supporting individuals who might be perpetrators and enabling and supporting the community to be the best version of itself it can possibly be. Which just plays straight into my experience as a neighbourhood inspector and my experience since I've left the police, because all the work I did as a neighbourhood inspector and a lot of the work I've done since with police forces and the European Union, I was on a 3-year project with them on the International Advisory Board, was about an asset-based approach to enabling and developing strong communities. So it almost plays into my world, this. And it plays into the competency and values framework perfectly. The approach we took, I mean, Adele yesterday, that was the approach we took, wasn't it? It was about, we don't want these young people to become, have criminal records. We want to do everything we can to have an out-of-court disposal. So Adele's nodding away there. Is it all flooding back, Adele, now?
Yeah, I'm starting to remember it all now.
Yeah. But that's the approach that's going to get you high marks, because it's the sort of thing that they're looking for now, because all the research tells us, and I knew this intuitively years ago, that, I mentioned it last night in the webinar, I wasn't the sort of police officer that, sort of hugged trees and sang Kumbaya and believed that everyone was going to be, as long as we all give each other a hug, we'd all be happy. We were absolutely ruthless as a team in destroying and dismantling organised criminality. Whenever I watch Line of Duty now, I can't even use the phrase OCG anymore, because I just keep thinking of Line of Duty and how corny that is. But this was serious stuff. We were putting people in prison for a long time. We were finding the drugs, the firearms, the finger that had been snipped off. It was just brilliant, awesome, brilliant. I just loved it. I get all excited thinking about it. It's just amazing. But at the same time, I worked out that it kind of just made sense to me that if we remove the people in the organised crime gangs, the leaders, if we think about it as being a structured organisation, if we think about the equivalent of the captains and the lieutenants of the OCG, if we remove them, all that happens is that those people who are the foot soldiers just self-promote themselves. There'll be a battle among them as to who's going to be the person who takes over the running of that nightclub or whatever it might be, the illegitimate running of it, when I say about controlling the doors and controlling the drugs. Who's going to take care of that round for the loan shark? Who's going to manage that? And there'll be some people get hurt along the way. There'll be some, you know, some bones broken and someone being knifed and hurt and maybe killed, or certainly grievously harmed. In that sort of fight for survival as to who's going to be the next illegitimate leader in the community. So my thought process was that, and this one works perfectly for your assessments, that we can do all of that, but at the same time, we need to build and enable a really strong, cohesive community so that fills the space over time, that fills the space. And it sits perfectly. And Jess, you could even consider this, the Peelian principle of the police of the public and the public of the police. Actually, I'm going to give a prize to anyone who knows the next part of that line. Anyone in the group who knows the next part of that line, the police of the public and the public of the police? There's a prize. It's an awesome one. No, all right. The police of the public and the public of the police just being members of the public who are paid full time to carry out a role which is incumbent on all citizens in the interest of community welfare and existence. So if we think about what Sir Robert Peel was saying in 1829, he was saying that actually the police are just members of the public. They're just paid full time to carry out a role that everyone, it's incumbent on everyone. He said, but he changed the language from members of the public to citizens. There's a difference between a member of the public who just is a passive receiver of services and a citizen who is actively doing things in their community to make their community a better place. And he didn't say, this is inspirational, folks. I'm going to kind of end on this a little bit because I get the hairs on my back stand up when I think about this. For me, this is so inspirational. I had this on a little plaque plaque is an A4 piece of paper next to my desk as an inspector. I used to look at it for inspiration. Because the language he used was in the interest of community welfare and existence. He didn't say in the interest of reducing crime. He didn't say in the interest of getting the bad guys. He didn't say in the interest of arresting people. He didn't say in the interest of community safety. He said in the interest of community welfare and existence. So what I think he recognized was that a strong, cohesive community is one where people are less likely to commit crime, where they're more likely to have a sense of belonging, where they're more likely to feel connected in the community, when they're more likely to carry out activities in the community that help benefit others, and equally other people in the community help benefit them. They're more likely to be fit and healthy than be taking drugs and alcohol. They're more likely to have a good mental health state. They're more likely to have role models in their community who aren't drug dealers. So this is a sort of ethos. If you take this ethos in everything you do with the stage 3, you're going to be scoring 90% plus. The 3 hours I put Adele through last night is how to achieve it. But you should be able to just use that as a template and just drop it, cut and paste it into everything that you do for the written. And on Thursday, Adele and others are going to be practicing for the stage 3 briefing. We're going to be actually practicing the 3-minute answers. And so they give you, the good thing about the stage 3 briefing is they give you a really vague question, like what considerations would you have now? I'd be thinking about, my biggest consideration would be about how we can prevent further harm to this community and how we can enable these young people to become the best versions of themselves they can be. And the way I would approach this is by, and it'll score you awesomely. You'll get 90-something%. And it's an approach that works, honestly. It just, some of the best years of my policing career were spent doing this, destroying and dismantling organised crime gangs. And at the same time, the hardest part, that was easy, the hardest part is dealing with community members, enabling them as the assets in the community to do amazing things, to come up with the ideas, sometimes to plant the seed of an idea in their head. So I tell them stories a lot. I'd say things, I'd say things, you just reminded me actually of a situation. I can't remember where it was now, where was it? It was somewhere in the south of England, or it might actually, it might have been in Brazil or South America. And I'd be really vague and I'd say, but it was a very similar situation to this. And what they did was just incredible because they kind of came together with this idea that they could do blah, 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 blah. And I just tell a story. And it was a story most of the time. It's just this made up stuff. But if I told them to do something, human nature is that they won't do it, will they? Am I right, folks? If you're told to do something, will you do it? Will you own it? But when it's your idea, then it grows and flourishes. And then 2 weeks later, sometimes they come to me and say, we've had this great idea. And I'll be thinking, I know you have. I told you about it 2 weeks ago, but they forgot about that bit. And so at the end of it all is that sense of community welfare in existence. When it's achieved, and it takes time, it can take 2, 3, 4 years. It's just a wonderful thing because they are proud of the fact that they did this themselves. The community are proud of the fact that all of this was, they just did this themselves. And if you ever ask them, so what was the role of the police? They'd just say, they just seem to be very supportive. They're really supportive. This will really bake your noodle because at some point you've got to admit to them that actually you're using a systematic approach to enable them to be the best version of themselves they can be. That everything you're doing isn't just some great idea that you've suddenly had. It's all part of a 3-year plan. Because sort of, I'm going into a lot of depth here, but some of the members of the public started feeling as though we were manipulating them. They started to sense that actually they were being enabled, and it wasn't quite so off the cuff. And we had to be very open with them and share with them that actually it's probably the right time to share with you that actually you're going through a process that we are deliberately taking you through over a 2 or 3 year period. And they're kind of okay with that. They're all right with it. Anyway, Jess, I bet you're wishing you'd asked that question now, aren't you? Was it Jess or was it? No, it's Francis, wasn't it? Francis, you're wishing you never asked that question. Francis, were you on my webinars, the interactive webinars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just so long ago, but I've only just got my assessment centre date, so I'm going back over it all again.
All right. Back then, though, did you think it worked for you back then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Just refreshing it all back in my head.
All right, Francis, just because you're already working in the police and because you've been on one of my courses before, would you like to come and join course 2 of 2022's webinars free of charge?
Yeah.
Great, let's do it then. Drop me an email, just say, Brendan, you offered me these webinars for free. Come and join course 2022, 2 of 2022.
Thank you.
And come and join us. Come and join us again. Get a bit of a refresher.
Thank you.
That will make sure that you're ready for the stage 3 bit. The weird questions. All right, I'm just looking at time now. Oh my goodness, I said we'd be about an hour, didn't I? We've been ages now, we're ages. Has anyone got any big questions? No, we're kind of getting towards the end of the challenge thing. I know I've got the Kickstart 2022.
Yeah, hello, Brendan.
Hang on. Just slow, come to your moment. I'm not going to go. I'm not just going to go right off. Go on, ask the question, GK.
Just a quick one. I really appreciate it. My question is this. Sometimes I've read and I've seen on YouTube or something on this nature that I'm wondering, how can I apply the 4 E's in written exercise instead of briefing? How can I apply that 4 E's? Engage, explain, and encouragement, and enforce. How can I apply it in written exercise? Is it possible?
It is. It is very, very possible. Someone was asking on Twitter the other day, where did the 4 E's come from? I think it's a simplified version of the 5-stage appeals process. And that's another 20 minutes in itself. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to be bold here and just say, do you know, it's a really good model. It links in with the 5-stage appeals process. But if you want to know more, honestly, it's a shameless plug. Come and join the big webinars. Come and join the course. Come and join the big webinars. Come and join the interactive webinars where we look at things like this.
All right.
Because otherwise, I'm not going to get my tea tonight. I'm not going to get my tea.
All right.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I have a special link. I have a special link to my courses at a reduced price. It's quite a big reduction, actually. It's to join the online course and the interactive webinars. There's about 9 or 10 hours worth of interactive webinars there. Is normally £159. And there might be some people here thinking, I've already paid that. But because you've joined me tonight and you spent an hour and a half with me, if you email me and say, Brendan, I was on this workshop that you did. And even if it's a recording of this and you've got this far, it means that you're keen. So if you've got this far at this point this evening, drop me a line, drop me an email, info@bluelightconsultants.com, ask for the link, and I'll send you the link that will give you that for £99.
All right.
And
Thank
if
you.
you've got your final interview coming up, I'll give you a link to a service that instead of gives you the final interview course and the webinar for £99, it gives you it for £69. And you get some of the bonuses as well, like access to some material that you can't get elsewhere. But drop me a line, drop me that email. Because otherwise, these workshops could turn into, hang on a minute, Brendan, my wife was actually saying this before. She's saying, look, we're meant to be making a living here. Don't just give away all this stuff. This is how we make a living. And it is, it's how we make a living. But the way I keep thinking about it is, I love to hear about people passing. Every day I get messages from people to say, you've passed, I've passed. They always say things like, people always say, I couldn't have done it without you. Actually, you could have. It's just that I showed you the way you did the hard work and you nailed it first time with a high mark, and that's what we're after. But that's why I love what I do, because honestly, it's just great to see these dreams being fulfilled, and it's just awesome. It's just awesome. But then I have to keep remembering that, no, you do need to make a living out of this. You know, we've got like beans on toast to put on the table, or the kids' swimming lessons like tonight. That's why I was a bit late. Just got back from swimming lessons. It's how I make a living. Anyway, there you go. Does that make sense, Ajika? Is that okay?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Awesome stuff. Any other big questions, folks?
Thank you.
No? Well, listen, awesome to see so many of you who are familiar faces, who are on my courses already. Awesome to see so many new faces as well. I will post this in the challenge group. Recording of this will also go in the big Facebook group. So if you want to watch any part of it again, that's your opportunity to do so. Otherwise, I will wish you all a good night, and I look forward to the next hour-long workshop, weekly workshop hour. What am I on about? Catch up with you soon, folks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.